Paula Droege, and this is my search for a material soul. You're weird, Droege. This is what my best friend and college roommate, Carolyn, used to say to me often, with the mutual understanding that I took it as a compliment. I was definitely weird, the only woman in most of my philosophy classes, a member of my sorority group known as the Social Zeros, and part of a group of friends who published an underground newspaper, Shot in the Dark, during the Reagan era. And I've continued to be weird, working at the downstate New York nuclear weapons freeze campaign, getting a master's degree in teaching philosophy for children, working at a sensing device company, a paging device company, and the American University in Cairo. Getting a PhD in philosophy is about the most normal thing I've done. One of the things I often said in reply to Carolyn's remark that I am weird is that I am becoming more and more myself. That is, more weird. So was it my destiny to be weird? Yes and no. There is a tension in the causal relations of development between the probabilistic patterns of change and the opportunistic chance for diversion. In Season 2, Episode 4 on free will, I argued against determinism, which is the view that physical causation is structured by necessary causal law, such that every event since the Big Bang must have occurred just as it did. If determinism is true, there is no meaningful notion of free will. A better way to think about physical causation includes the mind as part of the causal processes, because the mind is physical. All actions are physically caused, and some of those physical causes are things like beliefs and values. That's the material commitment to a material soul. The concept of destiny expands on this way of thinking about free will by looking at how bodies and choices shape our lives over the entire span, starting with bodies. Consider genetics. Where we once thought of DNA as a blueprint that specified the exact dimensions of the physical body, genes are now viewed as more of a set of ingredients available to incorporate into the stew of you. Some, like eye color, are definite. Others, like weight, are more variable. Personality traits like weirdness are a matter of debate in tracing the interaction between genetic predisposition and environmental influence. Choices enter into this dynamic of nature and nurture as the self forms from helpless infant toward autonomous adult. We can't choose our genetics or our early experiences of the world. By the time we understand what counts as a choice and how to make good choices based on reasons, a story of ourselves has already begun, based on what foods we liked and toys we played with, how well or poorly we slept, whether we were docile or assertive. The story can be revised, but it is difficult to do and rarely actually done. Destiny begins with the story we are told about ourselves. A self might take up a particularly compelling story of herself and simply follow the narrative to its natural conclusion, reinforcing the sense of destiny. Little Steve always saved his change and enjoyed counting the coins and arranging them, so here clearly he was destined for finance. Little Taylor loved music and performing since she was a young girl, so she was destined to be a pop star. There was no compelling story for me that I recall. Grade school report cards said that I was a joy to have in class and should socialize less. A bumpy adolescence reined in my tendency to be chatty when I discovered how mean girls could be. Resistance to cruelty and conformity of girl culture is likely the origin of my weirdness. But why did it feel like becoming more weird was becoming more like myself? Let's do a record scratch segue to Martin Buber. In his classic I and Thou, Buber characterizes divinity as the relation of your whole being with someone else, including yourself. To treat someone as a thou means to accept them completely, unconditionally, and to be fully present yourself. Buber uses the metaphor of meeting someone in the road. We know only our part of the way, not the way traveled by the other person. The whole relation arrives at the place of meeting when our paths join. The I-thou relation is contrasted with the I-it relation, which is partial and one-directional. The it is distinct from I, and the relation is instrumental based on use. My relation to the coffee mug is in terms of its value to hold coffee. Even its sentimental value is instrumental in offering a sweet reminder of the shop in Egypt where it was purchased. Often we relate to other people as it, there to serve or be served in one way or another. We might even relate to ourselves as an it, viewing life as a matter of achieving some goal. This sort of means-ends reasoning gives us the illusion of control, but in fact we are driven by what Buber says are things and instincts that we pursue. True freedom, according to Buber, involves meeting destiny without knowing where it is. He listens to what is emerging from himself, to the course of being in the world. All this is pretty abstract. Is there a more concrete way to think about destiny? In the few months since I decided to retire, I've been spending a lot of time wondering about what my life will be in the next phase. My mom is 96, and my dad's siblings lived into their late 80s, so I expect to have a good bit of time left. Buber's way of talking about destiny as meeting someone in the road keeps coming back to me. When a person relates to himself as a thou, he gives his whole being to addressing the thou of his life as a thou that cannot be limited by another. When I feel open to the future, ready to meet what comes with my whole being, my talents and my fears, that is the moment of divinity, of destiny. I don't know where the path I am on will take me, but I'm ready to meet it. Retirement is the ideal time for this attitude. It's hard to be open to the future when you're worried about getting a job in a tight labor market or finding a place to live with skyrocketing housing costs. Means-ends reasoning seems the only option when failure to find the means will result in a failure to survive. Even when the goal is less extreme than survival, pressure to succeed in a career, to find a life partner, to have nice stuff, to look smacks, is relentless. Buber recognizes this. As he says, the melancholy of our fate is that thou always turns into it. A moment of true relation passes into the one-way direction of observer, classifier, consumer. Everyone is in relation to themselves and others as both thou and it at different times. Likewise, we toggle between destiny and fate. In those moments when we can be present with ourselves as whole beings, we are better able to respond to opportunities suited to develop our being, to listen to what is emerging from ourselves. Fate was the means-ends reasoning that led to my retirement. The university treated me as an it, and I responded in kind. Equal and opposite reactions. Destiny is the openness this blog allows me to read whatever sounds interesting and write what feels most meaningful at the moment. I fear that more and more of life is ruled by fate, the mental surrender to the machinery of economics and social media. I hope that the anxiety and depression resulting from a life ruled by fate eventually leads people to reject the machinery and realize the power of being in relation to oneself and to others. Next month's episode will develop this idea of hope. How is hope possible in a world that's so fucked up? The hope that God will rescue us seems ridiculous in an age when humanity is catapulting itself off the cliff of climate change and AI dominance. Do we give up the world and hope for a better life after death? Or is there a form of hope for redemption of this world now that can inspire and sustain us? What do you think about destiny? Have you experienced your life as a means to an end and or as a path to where you meet yourself? Is the concept of destiny comforting or upsetting? This video will certainly not be the last word I have to say about destiny, and I'd love to hear what you think.